Welcome. Today, Lauren, Christine, and I are going to be talking about sun transits 1 and 43. So we're going to be exploring around again and looking at we can see what we can learn and what we can play with over the next 2 periods of 5.5 days. So we're just doing a little bit of reflecting before just what's happened over the last two gates. And I was thinking maybe we should go in order here because Lauren, you would 38.
Or 28, yeah.
28, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really important that I retract a statement that I made in our last recording is that, oh, well, if you have that gate, you're probably not going to feel it very much. Can we just scratch that? um, there are so many other influences and astrological aspects that could have dialed this up for me. But I don't think I have felt that kind of pressure. It feels like years that I felt from gate 28. It's interesting because I felt like I was in the eye of the storm. Like I knew I was okay. All my limbs were on. I wasn't being tossed around, but it was pretty darn uncomfortable. Um, I'm wondering if either of you had that experience.
I hadn't had that experience that week, but I'm very hesitant going into one for
Oh,
very similar reasons. A lot of stuff's been coming up just thinking about it. So
and that's one of your
yes. Yeah.
okay.
Well, I mean, again, like we were at the end of this splenic season, right? This season where we had all of these fear gates all amassed one after the other about survival. And Lauren, I think about a little bit about what you were saying. I think, this 28 was pushing on this fear, right? This fear of
Sure.
for in specific, what's of meaning, what's of value, what are we doing here? Like, is this what is going to matter in the world? And I think about like we are evolving as a species, and in human design we talk about seven-centered living, where that goes back to the traditional chakra system that everyone knows, right? People had seven energy centers. There's been a mutation around 1781. There was a mutation in the human form, and now we are nine-centered beings. And this evolution is bringing us from this seven-centered, more fear-based, more survival-based life into a more nine-centered and life of emotional understanding and clarity, and less about like the survival based fears of the past and more about the emotional fears of now. And so I just think about the process that you yourself went through, right? Like you just said, like I wasn't my body wasn't unsafe, like I wasn't gonna die, but everything else felt unsafe, right? I emotionally felt exposed and vulnerable, right, in ways. And so I just think about it being an interesting alignment to your lived experience in this more broad evolutionary path that we're all on too.
Yeah, and again, another vote for taking notes and using a journal and calendar because I can look back and when I was first like looking at this gate, 2 weeks before we got there, I had written this note out of Hilary Barrett's interpretation of Hexagram 28. And she said, the limits have been exceeded. The supporting framework is no longer adequate for the weight. And that was totally my thought every day is what do I need today to prop this up so I can make it through the day? Is it an extra nap? Is it, a hot water bottle? Is it a walk in the forest? What is it? And so right in that, I was looking, how do I care for my emotional needs? Um, my physical safety is not what I'm worried about. It's just how can I hold myself up emotionally?
It's like years ago with all the fears, it used to be, oh my goodness, there's lions and tigers and bears. And now it's like, oh, there's all this stuff coming at me. And even though, like you said, you're not physically, by and large, we're not physically in jeopardy in the Western world anyway. And but it just feels almost like there's more to be afraid of. Because the lions and tigers and bears, you knew what they were and where they were.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's this great quote. I think it's E.O. Wilson that we have Paleolithic bodies, medieval systems, and godlike technology, right? And I think it pretty much sums up the why we are, our bodies just haven't caught up, our minds haven't caught up with this reality that we've built, right? So there's so many things to be afraid of and to be not understanding at an emotional level, right? Because it's all happened so fast, right? And so this is why when your boss yells at you, you feel like you're going to die. It's like, no, you're not, right? It feels that way. Your body's still, thinking your boss is akin to a tiger, and they're not, right? So,
Yeah, and a word here about this transition between gates. Again, when you're paying attention, you pay attention and you see things. And literally from the 30th, the Thursday, to the 31st, Friday, it felt like someone took their foot off the accelerator for me. So all this stuff was still there, but actually one of the issues got somewhat resolved. And in that, I could breathe and sleep more deeply and all the things. So just encouraging our listeners, there's so much to be gained from this, because I could have just gone, wow, that was a shit week, and gone on. But I learned something because I knew about the energies that were happening.
yeah, I think that that's one of the things I find most valuable about this practice is just this constant reinforcing of the idea that things change, right? Like, I mean, like this, and just that whatever's going on right now is just not gonna be true in a very short amount of time, right? And that can be scary. I mean, I could see it as, oh, things are going great and you want them to be great, but mostly in the world we're in this moment, things aren't great for most people, right? And so this idea that the aren't great things also are going to change, right? They're not going to stick around, that they're going to mutate in some way. I don't know. I just have found it really valuable. That just ties you back into the transitoriness of life, right? Like it just is. There's never been a fixed life for anyone, right? So, and talking about transitoriness brings us right into where we're actually looking at gates 1 and gate 43, because we are actually at a really interesting time. Astrologically, this time isn't particularly, something that people would know about, and clearly we're kind of after harvest season in the natural world. We're not yet really in full winter. So, lots of things wouldn't point to this moment being particularly transitory or particularly pivotal, but from a human design perspective, it actually is, right? So as we enter gate 1, we are actually switching in this the mandala from the half of the year that is yin energy into the half of the year that's yang energy, right? So it is a fairly pivotal time right now. We will also be entering gate 1 at the height of a full moon on November 5th. Which I don't know. I just feel like this thing that you were talking about, Lauren, like, oh, there was a decided change on the 30th when we went into gate 44. I suspect that there may also feel that people may feel this too right now. There's a lot of other things going on outside of just this sun movement. But when we do go into gate 1, it's gate 1. It is the most creative energy in the full 64 energies, right? It is all about self-expression, and it is an individual gate, and it is all about who are you at your core, what is this creative potential inside of you. And it sounds very basic, but I think a lot of people forget this. Like, you are the only you that has ever existed, that will ever exist, right? Like, each of us is this really incredibly unique expression of consciousness. And gate 1 is really talking about that. Like, who are you? how do you see the world? How do you express what it is that, and how consciousness comes through you, right? And we don't give each other enough credit, I think, about this, right? We live in a time that wants to homogenize us and wants to make things efficient and simple, and everybody's answer is this, whatever. You can take this pill and it's going to fix you the same way it's going to fix somebody else. And it's like, nothing could be further from the truth, right? So I really feel like this time, these next few days from the, I don't even know what days now, from the 5th of November to the 10th of November is gate one. This really is an excellent energy for just thinking about your own process, expressing in your own way, and being really, really keyed into this piece about this is your life. No other life has ever been like it. And what does that mean?
What's interesting, you said was right that we're on this cusp of moving from yin energy to yang energy, right? And yet, with this strongly masculine energy, is to pay attention to the fact that we all have both in us. And so there's this place of shifting into this. And just as you were talking, I started thinking about the word entropy being the shadow for this. And being such a big shift from one pole to another is not surprising that there's some entropy at this time, because there's this, when they're moving, it's like, even if you're trying to start your car and get going, there's a hesitation, right? And it takes time to sort of allow yourself into this new space. As I said before, I was feeling some little bit of trepidation moving into this one. And you make it sound really good, but then I'm looking at sort of the pulls that happen in this one that can make life quite dark. And it's interesting because, like, we're just came off daylight savings time, and all of a sudden now it's darker, and so this shift into dark is feeling like it has this sort of negative and a positive feel to it. There's a lot of feeling going on here.
I love this, Lois, and you just create such a beautiful segue into some of the things that I was thinking about. So Hillary Barrett talks about this is a time of liberating your creative energy. And liberation can be frightening and it can be freeing. We have both sides of the same sword. And I'm thinking too of Christine, this shift. I believe there is a huge shift in nature right now. And I personally have felt it profoundly over the weekend, moving into today. For the first time, I can say, I don't really want to be outside. Maybe I'll go clean the basement. I mean, now, things have to be pretty dire. But I already feel that, like it's that the turning inward, and letting go of responsibilities out there. I think that's a big piece too. But let's keep going for a bit. But Lois, I want to remind me, I've got a piece about the darkness now, and kind of that feeling about darkness being good and bad, because that comes up in the Gemmo.
Interesting. Yeah, because it's interesting too for me, because I have Scandinavian background, and in Scandinavian countries is dark and colder is like an invitation to get cozy, right? Get out the blankets and the slippers and the candles and that sort of thing. And I've been thinking about it as like how much I really love that. But then there's also this sad, depressive aspect that comes with this particular gate. And maybe that's what I've been thinking about, because there's that tendency to move into like depression. It was when the sadness hits, and if it sits too long, it gets really, really heavy and hard to deal with. And so that being able to, which we've talked about so many times, to be able to sit with what we're actually feeling and not push it away. Because like this has been like a lifelong lesson for me. It's just feel it. And if I feel it, it moves. And if I don't feel it, I wind up, talking to somebody about what's my problem.
Yeah, it's interesting when you say that, Lois. It makes me think about the polarity of this gate 1, right? So across the wheel is gate 2. These happen to be polarities. And so gate 1 is the most yang energy in the hexagram, and gate 2 is the most yin energy in the hexagram, right? And so the gate 2 is the receptive, right? And so there's as gate 1 is pushing out and being active, being expressive, gate 2 is sitting there in the dark in some ways, right? Being quiet and receptive to what's going on. And I could totally see how that energy would, how you would be feeling, what you've been expressing, because both of these energies are going to be activated at the same time, right? And so, I don't know, does that resonate at all?
Well, it actually does, because I have 1 and 2 in my design. So yeah, that makes sense. I'm in a push-pull right at the moment, right? Yeah. And like that, like we've talked about the idea of polarities before. And so moving between the polarities, so this entropy and the creativity that can come. And I know for myself is that when I get into those really low places, it's because I'm almost like a snake that's getting ready to shed its skin. And and not knowing how uncomfortable that's going to be every time that starts. But it always like comes out new, right? I guess that's the fresh, right? It got fresh skin coming out, and it's in sort of in the accepting of that there's a real wonderful thing that happens in this sort of coming down, and letting that be in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and also both of these gates, gate 1 and gate 2, both are in the identity center, right? So this is our sense of higher self, our direction in the world, right? This deep inner knowing. And it happens that this particular gate 1 transit, the sun, as the sun's transiting gate 1, Uranus will be in gate 8. It will just have shifted into gate 8, which will mean that the channel of inspiration is going to be on for everybody on the planet. Right. And so I hear your trepidation about this coming gate, but I really wonder if it's not going to be a really interesting and inspiring time for you, in part because this channel is, like I said, between the identity center and the throat, right? So it has this amazing ability to express and to create on the physical plane, and it wants to be making a contribution, right? And so there is going to be this real energy for this. Possibly it's an individual energy, but since it's going to be on for everybody, I think about the possibility of lots of creative collaboration for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm still thinking about the loss that you're talking about, Lois, and there is a lot that we're saying goodbye to right now. I mean, all you have to do is look at the trees, right? We're saying goodbye to them. Another thing I've noticed is we're growing greens into the winter, and about a week ago they stopped growing. The ground and the temperature is holding them like a refrigerator would, but they're not growing anymore. So what's happening? Their systems have shut down that mechanism and that activity, and so that's also there's a little sadness to them, right? They don't, and so I'm thinking, as sensitive as you are, Lois, too, you're feeling right into that. These are endings of cycles. So it's probably only fair to share that. I think there's an answer in C. Buckthorn here. And there's a number of reasons that C. Buckthorn comes up. First of all, I think this is exactly the time of year that anyone that has seasonal affective disorder or any version of that, right as the clocks change, this is the time to start taking it. Because this is what it does. It works with aligning your systems and your circadian rhythms and your all the systems in your body. So it brings this alignment, which is also bringing us into alignment emotionally and with our integrity and how we face the world. And it offers a protective support. So some Gemmos, restore and some boost. But see, Buckthorn is protective. And that feels really special in this time because we want to protect our creative energy at the same time we're liberating it. And even though alignment, the process of alignment is challenging, I think sea buckthorn really steps up in its protection to help you face whatever losses we might encounter through the alignment.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was thinking about Richard Rudd had said in the 64 ways that, the kind of a theme of this energy gate one is getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? Like this is something artists do all the time. You have to get in there and just be unclear what's going to happen on that blank canvas, right? It's nobody comes to a blank canvas in a super comfortable way. And I was just wondering if like sea buckthorn too kind of sounds like it's like, like say if you have seasonal affective disorder, right? Like, the dark times are going to be hard, it's going to be uncomfortable. And like sea buckthorn could be like, hey, I can help you feel more comfortable with that.
I was just thinking back to something you said, Christine, about like sort of it's not really winter yet, sort of coming into this new space. And yet I remember, Lauren, you saying something about this beaver moon is about the time when the beavers start to hunker down. And we've also talked the last couple of times about how we've lost, I don't think we've really lost it, but we don't pay attention to the senses that we have about what we know is coming, what we can sense is coming. But we've got ourselves so like removed from that we aren't paying attention. So we probably are feeling much like the beaver. And it's unfortunate because we won't see them in the pond anymore, right? But somehow we know. Yeah, and all that knowing kind of is a nice segue into the next gate, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was just going to say that's exactly right. Like this inner knowing, right? These are both individual gates, gate 1 and gate 43, and they are part of the individual knowing circuit, right? And so people who have these activations, may recognize that there are just things about us that we have intuitive insight into, right? And these gates carry a lot of that. And gate 43 in particular is literally the gate of insight. And so it is in the ajna center. It communicates directly with the throat, and it's one of the three channels, one of the three gates in the system that when it's lit up as the sun transit, the polarity gate 23 is also lit up, creating the channel. So every time this time of year happens, gate 43, gate 23 both come on, the channel of insight. I'm sorry, the channel of structuring comes on for everybody on the planet. So again, as we had this, channel activation for the entire planet in gate 1, we're going to have a different individual channel activation for the entire planet during this time. So this is a lot of individual knowing energy alive on the planet for the first half of this month of November. And so the hexagram name is breakthrough for gate 43, right? And it is very much about this idea that we have these, epiphanies and insights on a regular basis, and we can't control them, right? And so one of the difficult parts of this energy is this idea that, you're not getting these insights, you're not getting them fast enough, they're not coming through when you need them, right? There can be a lot of struggle around this for people. So this is really about trusting, right? Again, trusting that things will happen in the right timing, and there will always be breakthroughs. This is the way of evolution, really, right? We don't ever, again, we're not static. There is no stasis. We're always evolving in some way. And every now and then, some of that evolution feels like an actual breakthrough. Um, so yeah, another really, I think, in very interesting time. Again, we have these moments in our outside history too, where I think a lot of us would love a breakthrough. So maybe there will be some of that in the outside world as well.
It's just so much noise right now, though. Yeah, and sort of one of the things that interferes with these movements is like usually it's the inner chatter, like we can't hear ourselves. And one of the things that I do in coaching is I'm listening so the other person hears themselves more than that I'm hearing them. And it's just like to cut through all of that chatter and get to where we can really hear what matters for us. And I don't know how we do that in the outside world because it's a buzz out there. But again, there's everything changes as we change individually. So each of us doing our own individual work here is the really important thing.
Yeah, I think you really nailed it there, Lois. It isn't something that can be controlled out there. It's managed one person at a time, taking responsibility for that. And in Hexagram 43, Hillary Barrett asked the question, what do you stand for? And how do you define yourself? And that really is what this is all about, is who are you? Who are you really? And it feels like something we've been leading up to for quite some time, with many of the other gates, shaping us a little bit this way, opening that up. But then that's really the big question, isn't it? Who are you?
Yeah. And it's all through our development, right from when we're little children.
Yeah.
It's like, who am I? How do I fit? Where do I fit? In sort of like, where do I resonate? And it's such a journey, such an individual journey for each of us on that path.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too. We've been using a lot of acoustic words, like Lois, you were talking about a lot of different sounds and whatnot, which is very much about this gate and this individual knowing circuit. It is an acoustic circuit, right? And so this ajna energy has the ability to connect to the throat to speak its mind, right? And so I think about as a tool to really be keyed into listening in this time frame, right? Listening to yourself, listening to the other, listen like in a very like I don't know, we think we listen, but we don't, right? Being much more intentional in this time of really hearing other people, letting people finish, not interrupting, right? Like I notice this is something I've been working on for a long time, is not interrupting. It's really hard for me to not interrupt, right? It's my manifesting generator energy. I'm like, ooh, I got something to say. But when I stop and I don't interrupt, I can really hear what that person is saying rather than what I think they're going to say, which is very much what I'm often hearing in my own individual knowing circuitry. So playing around with acoustics, I think, especially in this gate 43. I mean, the in the gene key, what do you call it? The
The
struggle,
shadow.
the shadow, thank you, is deafness, right? And this is a place in human design, we use this too. Like people that have this activation, they are often deaf. They do not hear others very well, right? And there's reasons for that. It keeps their individual voice alive in some ways and less pushed on, but it's a deafness, right? And we have to be aware of the things that we're deaf of.
Mm. It just reminds me this morning, in true confessions, I was having a little disagreement with my loved one and favorite loved one. And he was telling me something that was absolutely correct. And I did not want to hear it. And I really felt like, you know how when you're two and you put your hand over your parents' mouth, like, oh, that was so the urge. And I was like, just stop. I know you're right. I can't say that right now, but you know, it's this inner turmoil, like, because it was disrupting my framework and my story.
Another thing here is that we can't force this. And and it's like, especially find people who are on a spiritual path, a spiritual journey, is they're working so hard towards enlightenment or whatever they're calling it, and the harder they work, the further away it seems to be. And it's sort of like realizing that these, like you were talking about, Christine, is that these moments they appear to just show up, even though they're showing up because of all the work we've been doing. And now we're ready, like we're ready to hear whatever it was that someone was saying. But it's like being quiet enough that when they show up, we actually recognize them. Because the other thing that I find as a coach is I quite have to point out to people that something's happened or shifted for them because they've been so moving so fast, they didn't even notice it.
Yeah, and I think this too, this energy in the 43 and the ajna has a lot to do with knowing, but the real practice here, I think, is in the not knowing, right? Being comfortable with the not knowing. And this is something I think that we can really work on, especially in this time of like, the ajna will be on and defined for everyone on the planet. So there will be this underlying energy in each of us to be certain, even more than we might be in our normal everyday life, right? And so, but that is not being certain isn't really the gift in this, right? Like the real gift in this is being uncertain, right? Like that Chinese farmer parable. Like, I don't know, maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's not, right? Reserving judgment, recognizing that none of us truly know anything, really, and learning to be actually physically comfortable with that, which is a real different, it's a different kind of embodiment practice than just being in your head being like, oh, it's cool, right? Like those are two different energies.
But there's this running away from what I feel or what's coming up, or the truth that's coming towards me because it's uncomfortable. And we're so caught up on being happy and being secure. And so, in trying to create that in our lives, but it's like a cocoon.
Mhm.
And then there's the stories about what happens if you try to break open a cocoon too fast. I mean, the entity dies. And so being with what we're feeling long enough for that metamorphosis to actually take place.
Yeah. Sometimes that takes a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. More than one go around to get it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a good thing that these are cyclical gates. We keep getting practice. So I'm really excited to share this extract because it aligns in multiple ways that with what you each were bringing up. And I just happened to have a leaf from the tree because I was in Romania and I walked through a lot of the urban parks, and each one of them had ginkgo trees and they had a grove of them. This particular one is from a 350-year-old ginkgo tree that was in this botanical garden. And I have a habit of tucking leaves into all my notebooks when I travel. And then sometimes I remember them and sometimes I don't, but this came at an opportune time. So here's the story. Let's look at this first from an energetic perspective and taking ginkgo for emotional resilience. So Ginkgo's role is to draw your attention to your unique qualities and gifts. So it puts a spotlight on them, and no one else in the world possesses your same collection of attributes. So the question I would ask, and as you're contemplating Ginkgo, is when was the last time you considered all that makes you special and sets you apart? So let's think about Ginkgo and why that might be true. So it's the sole remaining tree in its species. It is unique for a number of reasons, but one is it has this really interesting symbiosis with green algae that grows on its leaves. So this algae grows on its leaves all on its own, but it supports the equilibrium of the whole tree. So you've got this giant tree being supported by little tiny algae, which in itself is just such a beautiful picture. Over time, Ginkgo has been known as a symbol of loyalty and immortality. And when I think of loyalty there, I think of loyalty to ourselves, because that's really what we're talking about here. We're being loyal to who we are. But on a physical level, Ginkgo protects the eyes and ears. That's its exact job. It works with the microcirculation of the head and giving specific improvement and protection to sight and hearing, which is exactly what we've been talking about here.
Nice. And there's a patience that comes with that.
Oh yeah.
Taking out of that, it made sort of aligns with something I was thinking about. Is like I was saying that you can't force the development, you can't force the shifts to happen, but you can create an environment in which they can happen, and so that cultivating stillness, cultivating quiet, so that you can hear yourself. Just listen to the quiet.
Mm.
Yeah, I wrote down this line that Richard Rudd wrote in his Gate 43 contemplation. We can't know anything. This is the epiphany, and in knowing nothing, we rest in everything, right? And so I think that very much sums up like what we're talking about here, that energy of resting in the not knowing.
So there's something to contemplate going forward.
Yeah.
Well, it feels like we've come to completion again. So thank you, and we hope you will be with us next time.